Every day, my company gets scam phishing emails trying to get money or sensitive info. I wanted to protect my employees and my clients, so I checked out CISA's Secure Our World. They've got simple ways we can protect our businesses from online threats. First, teach employees to recognize and report phishing. Next, require strong passwords plus multi-factor authentication. And finally, turn on automatic updates for your business software. To learn more, go to CISA at cisa.gov/secure our world.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
So at the beginning of the season, I asked the head coach, what do you want to try to accomplish? Let's see if we can weave that into the spirit of this work that I'm doing with your team. So leveraging both the Gallup training that I have as a strengths coach, meaning strengths as an awareness, and then folding in the Destination Unstoppable concept. I applied that, and he said,
welcome to the Foul Pole to Foul Pole podcast, brought to you by Black Diamond Softball and Fitness, presented by the Till Valhalla Project, where heroes live on forever.
All right, so my guest today is Miss Kathleen Murphy. You guys might know her from Market Me Too. I thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, thanks, Tyler. I appreciate you having me on. And you can call me Kathy. Most people call me Kathy. My mom calls me Kathleen if I'm in trouble. So we'll stick with Kathy, and I'll start the day without being in trouble. How's that?
Well, we could go there. I like that. I appreciate that. I started following you not too long ago. My buddy Scott Woodcock, one of the coaches up there at University of Maine, kind of turned me on to what you guys are doing over at Market Me Too. And I was like, you know what? I've got to have her on. I want her to explain to me exactly what she does and the impact that she's had so far on where she's at. So where did it all start?
Yeah, well, it's funny because the name of my company isn't something that necessarily makes a lot of sense anymore, because just to give you a quick sort of throwback into the Wayback Machine, I spent 25 plus years in the tech space as a executive marketing woman. And I decided about 7 years ago that I was going to do something different. I was just really kind of getting to a point where I felt like, all right, I feel like I've been doing this long enough. There are aspects of it that I like. There are aspects not so much. But what are the aspects that I really like? So I took the time to consider what those aspects were that I did like, and could I in fact stand up a business based on the elements that really lit me up every day. And really what those elements were happened to be developing teams, leading teams, helping people with their awareness of who they are, and helping to guide people to go from being perhaps, maybe ordinary to extraordinary based on the work that I do. Now, about 10 years ago, prior to starting my company, 7 years ago was when I started my company, but about 10 years ago, I came across the concept of Gallup Strengths Finders. So I want to just bring that up because that is a real big foundation of the work that I launch off from with all of the teams that I work with. And I'll get into the rest of my business a little bit, but I want to just bring that up. Gallup Strengths Finder is the concept. It's also referred to as Clifton Strengths. And as a concept, I discovered it when I was at one of the tech companies that I happened to be working at, which was perfect at the time when I discovered it, because we were in the process of merging multiple teams within a corporate organization based on the CEO saying he wanted to do this. And, oh yeah, by the way, we need to do this by Monday. And this was like on a Friday. It was pretty audacious goal. But so I'm walking down the hallway one day, and I see along the wall all of these different words associated with the names of our salespeople. I thought, that's really interesting. So I found out what it was. It happens to be a method which allows you to identify what your strengths are out of a possible 34. I concentrate on people's top 5.
Mhm.
So I discovered this was a process that you could go about learning very quickly and easily and affordably what someone's top 5 strengths were. And I used that with one of my teams, and actually with the second team that we're merging into to help us to evolve.
Right.
Now, back to the story about my business. So when I was thinking about my business, at first I thought I was going to continue to do some kind of marketing work. And I soon discovered I really didn't want to do that. I was originally doing that for small to medium-sized, even enterprise-sized companies.
Mhm.
But I soon realized that really wasn't my passion. It wasn't why I stepped out of the corporate world, and that I wanted to do something else. And so I thought back to the conversation that I had with myself about, well, you really love working with teams. And at that time, it was really corporate teams. But yet I had this sort of gnawing instinct that I wanted to branch out and work with sports teams, but I really wasn't sure how to go about doing that.
Right.
Lo and behold, I happened to be at a seminar one day where I found out about the concept called Destination Unstoppable, which was a book and concept written by Maureen Monte, who happened to create this concept that allows you to take the Gallup strengths aspects and spin it to make it more applicable towards sports teams.
Mhm.
And I thought, wow, that's really cool. And her first entree into using what she had developed was based around an ice hockey team, actually it was a high school ice hockey team out in the Midwest. So I read all about this. I thought, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do business wise. I want to add this into my business. So then the challenge became, all right, well, how do I find a team to work with? Who's going to work with me? I don't have any experience working with a sports team. I have lots of experience working with teams in the corporate world. And I happened to find a coach that was willing to take me on. And that happened to be our youngest son's lacrosse coach at our high school in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, where I live. And our son was leaving that school to go to a different school. He was going to a school that was going to be about an hour away, and he wouldn't have an association necessarily with that school. Sadly, he was leaving the lacrosse team that he had been on since freshman year and made the varsity team. And I asked him, I said, would you mind if I approached your coach and asked him if he would take me on to volunteer my services to the team that you had been on? He said, no, I'm okay with that. Go ahead, Mom. So I said, all right. So I approached the coach, and he took me on. There were approximately, I believe, 28 gentlemen, young men between the ages of, 14 to 18 that were on this team. This lacrosse team is a varsity lacrosse team. And I worked with that team and their coaches. There were 2 coaches, actually 3 coaches, and one of them had special needs. And he is a Down syndrome person, and he was absolutely phenomenal. He was the heartbeat and just one of the most magical coaches you could work with, that helped out with the team as well. So I applied the concept to this team. And the coach was very gracious because he allowed me to basically experiment and do whatever I wanted to with that team. And so at the beginning of the season, I asked the head coach, what do you want to try to accomplish? Let's see if we can weave that into the spirit of this work that I'm doing with your team. So leveraging both the Gallup training that I have as a strengths coach, meaning strengths as an awareness, and then folding in the Destination Unstoppable concept. I applied that, and he said, what I'd like to do is we've had a hard time. We've struggled with trying to get towards going to the state level championship. And I would love any kind of support that you can give us to help us to get there. Right. The other challenge that we have routinely that most high school teams will have, and most sports in general, is that every new season their team is basically new because they're constantly adding new people to the mix. You don't have that kind of dynamic going on as much in the corporate space,
Right.
but in sports, as you know, you do. It's constantly evolving. So how do you fast track a team to get to a place where their ability to get to know one another and their ability to appreciate and understand one another's strengths and how to leverage them, especially from the coach's perspective, in terms of how to motivate them, how to talk to them, etc. How do you do that? So that's where I came into the picture. So I told the coach that I would help the team to do all those things in the spirit of getting him and the team as close to winning the state championship that they desired to win. It was a pretty large goal.
Yeah.
And during the course of the season, when I worked with that team, I have a very sort of structured program with I'm doing something literally every day, every week with the team. There's pretty intense involvement with them, and it's only gotten more intense as I've gotten to the level of working at the Division I teams, and now I'm in talks with working with potentially professional teams as well. That's in the process. But going back to this high school team, we worked very successfully together during the course of the season. It was a ton of fun. That's a very large sort of component to what I do. Also, it's got to be fun, because if it's not fun, no one wants to be doing this kind of work.
Yeah.
So the gift that I was giving to this team, independent of my time being donated to them, was the fact that these young men were going to have an enormous advantage in life. They didn't necessarily know that perhaps at the time,
Right.
but the gift that I was giving to them was awareness of who they really were, what made them tick, and how to help them to bring out the best, not only in them as a person, but as a teammate.
Yeah.
Now, the work was going to be left up to them to do what they needed to do to be a great, strong athlete.
Mhm.
That wasn't, I stayed in my lane. So that like the sports coaches did that kind of work. But I also coached the coaches. So I'm a coach's coach. There aren't a lot of us that do this type of work. But so I also coach executives at the chief, level within organizations, presidents, vice presidents, etc.
Yeah.
And so I work very diligently with this team. They're incredibly cooperative. I was literally behind them during most of their games, behind the bench, doing my part. There's an aspect called human teams that gets introduced through the Destination Unstoppable concept that I introduced to the team. And I was part of one of the human teams. So I also had a job being on that team, independent of being the coach. And I leveraged that throughout the course of the season. Now, the team had a phenomenal season. They did extraordinarily well. And I will tell you that although we did not make it to the state championship, we made it within just 3 games of actually getting there. So that was pretty phenomenal to get that far, because they had never actually reached that level in the past. So that was pretty exciting to get to that point. Another thing that I did and took advantage of after that was I started looking around also at what could I do for my own personal and professional development in terms of better understanding coaches, because I wanted to continue to work with sports coaches. So I decided to embark upon a sports coach research project. I think you told me that you know Brene Brown or know of Brene Brown. Maybe you're a Brene Brown fan.
Right.
So I channeled she's a social researcher out of the University of Texas. And I really admire her work. So I decided, well, how would Brene Brown go about approaching doing a sports coach research project? So I started thinking about that, and I reached out to a former professional NFL coach and NFL player by the name of Jason Verduzco. And Jason and I worked on coming up with questions that I could ask coaches. Now, this project started out very sort of organically. to at first, initially, we're going to just probably talk to about a dozen coaches. And we didn't necessarily prescriptively go about coming up with a list. You would think that that would make sense, but that's not how we approach it. It was, like I said, very organic. But what happened was that we ended up working on this project together. He dropped off Jason about into the maybe 10-ish mark of having talked to some NFL coaches that he had known when he was in that world, and then a series of a lot of other different coaches. And he dropped off because he had some personal things in life. He and his partner had babies. So he's like, Kathy, this is too much work. I'm going to go in a different direction. And I said, okay. I said, I'm going to keep going. He's like, all more power to you. So I kept going. And about 18 months later, I finished the project. And I, at that point, had completed speaking to 51 coaches from across the country and 2 coaches from outside of the US, one in South Africa and one in Denmark. And it consisted of 12 different sports. About 60% of the coaches were men. The balance were women. And I talked to coaches at the high school, college, Olympic, and professional level. So I had a nice mix of different types of coaches that I talked to, and like I said, 12 different sports. And what I learned from that was extraordinary. And so what I gained benefit-wise from doing that work was I now not only developed information that I could share back with these coaches in terms of what I learned from the research analysis that I did on that, and I'll talk a little bit about that too. But I had now an opportunity to go back to these coaches to share this information with them, and then to say, hey, would any of you be willing to take me on to work with your Division I teams? I wanted to work at that level. Yeah. And one of the coaches did. And it happened to be a coach with a very well-known last name of Belichick. Yeah. And this is Bill Belichick's daughter, Amanda Belichick, at Holy Cross, who is the head coach of the women's lacrosse team there, took me on to work with her.
She's pretty incredible.
Amanda,
I know her dad is pretty incredible. Amanda's pretty incredible too.
She's amazing. She's incredible. And so Amanda took me on. When I said, do you know anybody? And she said, I do. I said, oh, great. Okay. Who do you think you'd like to refer me to? She said, well, would you take me on? Could I work with you? And I said, oh my gosh, that would be so incredible. So we started working together. So Amanda gave me my launch into the D1 sports. Mm-hmm. And then people started to find out. I really kept that on the down low because I said, look, I'm not going to leverage this in any way to put anybody sort of in a bad position to have to talk about what we're doing. Right. This is experimental. I want to also be respectful of the fact that perhaps a lot of people want to have access to you. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We're going to keep this very professional. I'm going to work strictly with you and your coaches and your team. And so we did that. So this is really kind of the first time I've actually even revealed this information. So I can't reveal a whole lot more other than to say, thank you, Amanda, Amanda Belichick, for giving me that incredible opportunity, which led me to, in a roundabout way, fast tracking to coming about having an opportunity with the University of Maine and working with their softball team. Mm-hmm. Because I was then, after I finished up the project with Amanda, decided, I was going to continue to do this. I now had a Division I team under my belt from an experience perspective, and I wanted to keep going. Now, originally, I'm just going to backtrack a little bit here. Also, originally, my intent of when I started doing the sports coach research project was to be able to approach a D1 team, which happened to be the University of Massachusetts football team. Mm-hmm. And the reason being was because our youngest son happened to be a student there. At the time, our daughter was still there as well, and their team was not doing well. And I thought, well, if I can gain enough information, maybe take this analysis and bring it to the coach, just maybe I'll have an opportunity to be in front of a coach that might give me a chance because they were in a situation where they just weren't performing well. And what did they have to lose? So I figured it could be a win-win for both of us.
Yeah, definitely.
So that didn't happen, but these other opportunities started to occur, and one led to the other. So in working with this softball team at the University of Maine, I got introduced to them through their assistant athletic director, who said, "Hey, I have an opportunity I want to run by you to see if you'd be interested in this. I've got a head coach who just completed their first year. It was a rough year. They can benefit from your experience of being, a leadership oriented coach, motivation coach, and someone that's focused on team dynamics and awareness. What do you think? Would be interested in working with them?" I said, "Yeah, let's go. Let's see how this is going to work out." So I began the journey of working with the University of Maine softball team actually last summer. And so they're in season right now. I'm going to be going to watch them later this afternoon. But the experience of working with them has just been absolutely phenomenal, because like Amanda, they've been very willing to allow me to do my thing and to make course sort of corrections or adjustments to my program to better support them throughout their journey. And so I'm now at a place where I've got about 50% of my clients are in the corporate space. I also do private coaching for individuals as well. But 50% of my business is also working with sports teams and being a coach's coach. So
that's awesome.
I literally wake up every day and think, oh my gosh, am I really doing this? Because it was quite a journey to get to this place. And of course I have to leverage my marketing experience, but I leverage it on myself as the client these days.
Yeah.
And everything that I learned from working with the sales teams all throughout the course of my 25 plus years in tech marketing, I'm also applying, which is helpful in terms of what I do, because leading and working with sales teams, they're hyper competitive. They want to win. So I love the sort of parallel with sales teams and sports teams. They're quite similar in many ways, and it's just so fun to work with them. I love their energy. The softball team has had some challenges this year that I can't get into completely talking about, but I can talk about a lot of other things relating to the team. Happy to sort of answer any questions for you. But the pivot that I made going from corporate to having my own company and being an entrepreneur with the brand, under the brand name of Wisdom Whisperer, I started also writing books to support being different as a coach, and also to serve as a mentor and to share my information in a way that could be shared. So I also leverage that with my own sort of podcast / TV show called Murph and E Unfiltered. So you'll find that for those people that don't like to read, I've got them covered, because they can either listen to what I have to say or watch what I have to say. So I've talked a lot, and I feel I want to give you an opportunity to ask me questions. I'm sure you might have something that you want to.
So some of the stuff, I'm sitting here listening to you. I mean, it was just on my professional side, like I was listening, but then like on my personal side, I was listening, and I was taking it back to when I was like 18, 19 years old, and I was in the Marine Corps. And it's just like, if we had someone that could not just give us generic answers of, this is the way I feel. Oh, that's fine. You feel that because of this, but get on a personal level with each member. And it's tough, but talking with you, it just kind of shows me that we are individuals that make up a team, and us being individuals have to make that team up, and we have to be individuals to create that team. So it's like,
Yes.
Learning who we are first is how we can learn about other people. And, you'd ask that question to the coach about, what did he want to accomplish? And of course they want to win, but they don't know how to go about winning. It's just that generic answer. We want to win. And I think you are that one that kind of lets them know, like, hey, first we got to figure out who you are first. Once you
True.
break the ice with those coaches and you kind of get to know them and you're helping them get to know themselves, at that point, does it kind of open up and then like that foundation, like you've broke the ice with them and now there's that trust?
Obviously trust isn't just granted, it's earned. And so the thing that I do as part of my program working with these coaches is I start all of them ideally preseason, the coaches themselves off, and put them into my leadership program. So I'm developing them first to be an even better leader and to understand themselves first, because to your point, you can really only be a good leader if you know what makes you tick and what you can bring to the table to help others. And you've got to really be quite unselfish to do that. And most coaches are incredibly unselfish, as you know, because they have to dedicate so much time and effort into what they are doing professionally. You're not going to find, other than maybe people in the medical space, that are incredibly unselfish like coaches. And so yes, I start sort of fundamentally with the coaches and then work through the team, and I work individually with team members, and I also will work collectively with smaller groups within the team, based on off of those human teams that I referenced earlier. And then I appoint a captain to each of the human teams to help, and then I help guide them. So I'm taking aspects of leadership and applying them and inserting them into the human captains, as well as the captains that have been named, also because it's critically important to have them appreciate the principles of leadership and how to be a good captain. Because just a lot of times people get appointed captain based on, let's face it, it's a popularity contest. It's not always maybe the person that should be the leader.
Yeah.
So a lot of times these captains that get named, you're going to find, especially at the Division I level, there can be some challenges with that, right? Because here are these people that may not have the correct leadership qualities, but yet they've been appointed leaders, and they may not have earned the respect yet or know how to gain the respect from their peers, but yet they're doing the best that they can, but maybe it's not enough and it's not working. So I spend a lot of time in conversation coaching people to help them to appreciate how to be a good leader. And what does that look like? What does that mean? What kind of behavior do you need to model or not model? Like I talk a lot about body language of people, their awareness of what they're doing or not doing. And sometimes they don't like it. I will tell you that. And I work with both men and women. And the women, the one thing I was thinking about this today.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
The one thing about women's teams that's really, really something that I want to try to start applying early in terms of an awareness is this thing about grudges and women holding grudges and just not letting things go and not being nice to one another. That's got to stop. And I even have that conversation at levels that you wouldn't imagine that I do.
Wow.
In terms of shutting that down and making people aware that maybe they're behaving that way, which doesn't serve anybody well.
Yeah, I'm involved with some of the teams in the upper echelon in the travel softball industry, and that's what I'm going to call it. I mean, it's travel softball is its own industry.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
it's incredible. And I've talked to a lot of the coaches, a lot of the heads of those organizations. I've talked to a lot of the tournament sanction directors and that element, if you will. The leadership across the board has gotten better. And I don't know just by default because there's more people, so the cream is going to rise to the top, or whatever that saying is. But I think right now in the world of softball, you have leaders who have been doing it for a while, and they've kind of learned as they go. And they've learned through them, through experience. We have a lot of players that went through the college ranks and played professionally or played internationally, and now they're kind of coming back and they're teaching from experience. And every time I get a chance to hear one of these females that went through their struggles of being a popular female in the sport, because let's face it, men dominate the sports world because it's flashier, it's more popular, it gets more airtime and stuff like that. But these such great athletes that are going through these struggles that are now coming back and able to talk to the 13s and 15s and 18-year-old girls and saying, hey, look, I've been there with you. I know exactly what you're going through. It does get better, but they may not have the tools to be able to translate that message to them. So these girls are kind of learning how to be leaders. And I wish there was more courses or more classes or something that they could do or take to where they could implement what they've learned faster to these girls and get this message relayed down quicker to them.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And unfortunately, there's no silver bullet, and it does take time.
Yeah.
Although I will tell you that the program that I have can accelerate things for people, and it does bring up things a lot more quickly in terms of having opportunities for people to ask questions about, like, what is it about me, and why do I behave this way, or how do I interact with so and so. Kathy, what's your guidance there? Because I do something which is called a team strengths reveal, and so I'll individually work with each player on the team first, get them to know about their strengths, and then we do a team strengths reveal, so they don't know what their teammates' strengths are. And we do this typically a couple of weeks before they go into their season, so that they have a couple of weeks to kind of like marinate on learning and appreciating their own strengths, but then have an opportunity to find out about the strengths of their teammates. And often teammates that they may not know that well, may not like, they may not appreciate who they are yet. They may not have had the opportunity to have conversations with them yet, just from a timing perspective. But when they find out that they have certain strengths in common, it's an incredible bonding scenario where I'll give you an example of, say, when I first started working with the Chelmsford High boys lacrosse team, there were these three young men that one was a freshman, one was a sophomore, and one was a senior, and they all had a strength called futuristic. Now, these three guys, they had different positions on the team. They were completely different ages. And they weren't necessarily, quote unquote, friends, but they just happened to be on the same team. Now, when they found out that they all had futuristic as a strength, they then had this new opportunity to talk to one another about the strength, how they use the strength, what they liked about it. And they had this thing in common that they probably never would have actually figured this out independent of having taken the strengths assessment, because it only takes 30 minutes to do this, and it's $20. It's like the best kept secret ever to do this. But this fast tracked those three young men to like a place that like I said, I don't think all season they probably ever would have had the conversations or gotten to the point where they had the kind of camaraderie that they did, just based off of this one word and this one definition of a strength that they had in common. Now multiply that, consider the multiplying fact when lots of other people have strengths in common and they can share that with one another and have this bond that they can leverage in so many different ways. There's like no downside to it. There's nothing negative to it. But the other thing that is an aspect and twist on what I was just telling you about was the fact that, and this kind of, it ties into softball a little bit, but it's more baseball oriented. But and I think I mentioned this too when we first talked about the movie Moneyball, and how in Moneyball, Brad Pitt was using statistics to figure out how to, get the best out of his players and his team, and who to trade and who not to trade, et cetera. Well, I took that to a whole new level and like leveraged off of that kind of in the spirit of the concept, but just a little bit differently, but applied strengths to it. So as far as I know, I'm the only coach in the country that's doing this. And so I've tested it on a number of my D1 teams to see how it works. And I can assure you it works. It's pretty incredible. So I was thinking about this morning, and I was thinking, if you were a sports coach and I told you, what if I told you I knew a way that you could make your competitors gain no benefit to watching game films about your team, and that they're in fact absolutely obsolete. Now we know that, especially at the Division I level, they're watching films all the time for their competitors. And so I was talking to one of my coaches about this recently. I said, well, are you at a place that goes back to that trust place and point? I had to be at a certain trust level with this coach to be able to even introduce this as a concept, to even get him to consider thinking about this. But I said, are you at a place right now where you would be willing to allow me to use the science behind this Strengths Finder? And keep in mind, Strengths Finder has been around for over 50 years. It's not a new concept, and I always say it's the best kept secret ever. And he said, yeah, I am. What do you have in mind? I said, well, you have, you've been telling me that you're potentially interested in mixing up different people to play them in different roles and with different people at the same time, but that it's kind of nerve wracking to do that. What if I was able to give you a way to, from a science perspective, tell you kind of from a food and wine pairing, if you will, perspective, but we're using people in this instead, in this scenario, who would work well together and for what reasons? And he's like, you've got my interest. Tell me a little bit more about that. So I said, all right, well, what I'm going to do is, independent of knowing what the talents are for any of the players and who goes well together, I'm going to put together some lines for you, some suggested lines in terms of who could play together, and not only that, take it to the next level, but in certain scenarios, say, for example, if you're down, you're losing, your momentum's off, your energy level's off, and any number of different sort of negative scenarios that could be occurring that happen all the time in sports, right? I said, and then you can just plug these people in these scenarios and see what happens. So he's like, okay, I'll give it a try. So I'm waiting for this to happen, and I'm literally watching them on ESPN, and I literally couldn't believe my eyes. So I was just like, wait a minute. And I'm looking at who's out there, and these lines of people that generally don't play together were out there on the field, and then there was another one, and then another one, and just about the entire team played, which is absolutely unheard of. This does not happen. This is just probably a first almost in the Division I sports level, to see a team of about 50 people, everyone rotate in a very competitive situation. And guess what? They blew that other team off the charts and blew them away. And I couldn't believe my eyes. And so it works. I can tell you it works.
And that's, to me, that's where the analytics side of things needs to be brought up and paid attention to, because I get it. I mean, we see the eye test. We're trying to pass the eye test of what we think is working, but our eyes will fool us. But if we can get to the science of why two people or a group or work better, and there's science behind it,
or don't.
Or doesn't. Exactly right. We could think the starting point guard and starting shooting guard are the best just because he come from Oklahoma City and he come from Miami, and now we put them together, they're going to work. That doesn't make sense. You look at the NBA, they always talk about the big three with LeBron and the rest of them. You just put these guys together, it fails more times than it actually works, because you got all these alpha males that are used to running things a certain way. You put these alphas together and they don't know how to lead one another, or they don't know how to be led, I guess. And you get somebody that will buy into it and say, hey, look, this works because of X, Y, and Z, or it doesn't work because of X, Y, and Z. I think teams will develop, and I'm looking beyond sports. Like once their sports days are done, if they can take what they've learned from you or from your experience and go, hey, this is what I did, and I may not have all the sciences, but I can at least apply some element to this, to whatever business I'm starting or whatever business I've joined, or now I'm in a new executive role with this company. I can try things. It's like a tree. It just branches off. And that to me is fascinating. And when Scott, he reached out of the blue, like I knew he was busy, like we'll text here and there, but out of the blue, I was laying there. It was late, and he asked me like if I could call him or he could call me. I was like, boom. So I jumped up, and he's like, dude, you I don't know what you're doing, but you've got to talk to Kathy. Like, this is something that I know you would be fascinated in, and I know it'd be a great episode to your podcast to get more and more people to understand that it's not just X's and O's, man. It's like X, Y's, and Z's in your brain.
No. And realistically, I don't even necessarily focus on talking about winning per se.
Yeah.
It's an outcome from the performance when you get the team dynamics right.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that the team dynamics, once you lock in, you get it right, you can just walk away and say, okay, I'm done. It would be like equivalent to going to the gym once all year and say, I'm in shape now. This is great. I went once. I'm good.
It's not a simulation. I mean, it still has to carry out, but at least there's some scientific, something that you can kind of base your decisions on and go, okay, this worked, that didn't work. This worked, that didn't work. It takes some of the guesswork out so you can be a better coach.
Without a doubt. And I leave obviously the coaching part up to the coaches to do their thing. But they also, one of the things I learned from my sports coach research project is that a lot of times, especially in season, they don't have a lot of people that they can talk to. Well, they do, but maybe not people that they want to talk to about what they're experiencing, the challenges that they may be going through. That's where I come into play. That's a huge role that I play for these coaches, because I have a trusted advisor role with them where they can tell me anything. I said, I'm like your lawyer, or like
I'm going to say attorney-client
or therapist. I'm not a therapist, but some of them tell me I like you better than any therapist I've ever talked to.
Has Scott ever told you what he sent me your contact information, and it's in his phone like it is in mine. I think I'm pretty sure it's Kathy Murphy, sports shrinkologist. That's what he sent it to. So that's how you are in my phone now too. So.
I love it. Oh my God. I remember the first time he told me that, I just started cracking up. I was like, all right, I never heard that one. I like it. It's good. I'll take it. That works for me.
He didn't go into detail about like the findings with him and how like his numbers and stuff were, but he said, man, like he listed them like really quick, and he was like, I forgot what he said his number 5 was. I think it may have been futuristic. I think futuristic is one of his. I can't.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, knowing him briefly, I haven't known him all that long, but just the conversations that we've had, and like he's a big, bold thinker, like progressive, wanting to push the envelope and develop and kind of take things to the next level. So that's not surprising to me at all.
Right. No. And it's really fun when you're talking to people, if you do know what their strengths are, you'll hear them conversationally weaving in aspects of their strengths. And generally, I don't like to always guess, but I can typically hear or guess at least a couple of people's strengths. Sometimes I'm thrown off a little bit because you may have just met them and you just don't have enough context to do that. And I'd rather actually find out sort of scientifically what they are and then work from there. Because sometimes I'm as surprised as they are in terms of some of their strengths. And then and I love when people have these aha moments in terms of particularly when they think that like one of their strengths is actually a weakness and they don't realize, and they've never been giving credit to the fact that one of their strengths is something that they've been always dismissing or being annoyed with.
Right.
and it's so funny when that happens. And I tell them, well, that's actually using your strength in what we call a barrier basement level. And the worst thing that you could do is to use a strength against yourself. It's bad enough if other people are using it against you, but you don't want to be leveraging a strength that you have as something negative against yourself. So I think I'm always sort of, I don't know, pleasantly surprised when someone finds out that one of their strengths is something that for the longest time they never considered it to be that way.
I know it has to be so rewarding for you to when like you see that light bulb moment for people and it just clicks. And it's like I can't imagine what that. I guess it's like when I teach a kid and they learn their swing or they get better, whatever. Yeah. It's just like it's the greatest feeling in the world when you can help someone better themselves. And I know you on that exponential level when you're able to help these types of people. That's awesome, man.
It's why I do what I do. And it's why, early on in my business, when I was trying to, get it going and everything, it was what kept me going was when I had those occurrences with people that I knew that I was helping them and just allowing them to really embrace and leverage their talent in a way that they hadn't been before. I mean, nothing would make me feel better, or nothing is just more gratifying when you know that you've actually helped somebody. And not everybody is in a position in life where they feel like they're doing that on a regular basis. I happen to feel very fortunate that I am able to do that, like you. I mean, not everybody has that experience, but I will tell you, it's the best feeling ever when you can do that for somebody.
It is. There's no better feeling. I talk to my buddies and coaches and throughout the country, and there's a certain level of volunteerism that encompasses coaching, and you can tell the ones that are in it for the right reasons, and those are the ones that I gravitate towards, and we have the same belief in, and it just when all of us kind of get together and you can see that there's more and more people that are like you and you just continue to grow and they're like, there's this betterment. I mean, there's so much evil and negative in the world and I hate it, but I try to associate myself with people like yourself and Scott and others. And it's just like when we're all kind of pulling in the right direction. I mean, it's a huge mountain that we're trying to climb. It's tug of war, but man, there is no better feeling. It's so rewarding to know that you've passed on some information, you've helped someone out, and we can continue to grow, not just in the sports world, but just as human beings. And at the end of the day, that's why I started the podcast. It's branched out. It's going crazy. I just told you earlier, there's one of the followers had reached out and said, hey, when you're putting something else out there. And I know that deep down I've impacted some people and I would love to impact millions of people, but that's just not my space. So I have to focus and do what I do here and be who I am. And I'm going to jump into this as much as I can. And I'm a business of one. I'm the CEO of one, but I think it will help me develop and help do what I can too. Cause I don't necessarily coach a team, but I'm an instructor for a lot of different individuals. So I want to get involved.
And I love the fact that, you're doing something that is impacting women as well, because particularly young women, because I was having a conversation earlier with our daughter who's 26, and she was telling me about a situation professionally that she needed some advice on. She called me really early this morning. And I thought, wow, I can't believe this is something that I'm having to give her advice on without going too deeply into it. It's something that I thought was, never going to come up again per se. And here it was rearing its ugly head this morning based on an interaction that she had professionally yesterday. And I thought, all right, we still have a lot of work to do. But to your point, there are a tremendous amount of good people out there, people that get it, people that are working every day to try to make a difference, help others, in the spirit of, these are my top 5. I'll just show you.
Oh yeah.
These are positivity, strategic arranger, woo, and individualization. Most people don't know what arranger and woo or individualization necessarily happens to be, but arranger allows me to take a look at information very quickly and figure out the best possible course of action to go from point A to Z very easily and strategically. Hence, also I use my strategic for that one. Woo means winning others over. So I love meeting new people. Yeah. I gain energy from that. And then individualization is a strength that I use on a regular basis with the people that I'm coaching. It allows me to spot nuances about somebody that make them exceptional, that they may not see themselves, that I see and want to foster and help them to develop, which is, one of the kernels that I took away from why I developed this business from the place that I did, was because it really lit me up, especially being able to use that particular skill just alone, but positivity as well, because that's my number one strength, and we certainly need, I think, a lot more of that in this world, and so I try to do my part to make that happen on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, from the first conversation that we had, I think we were both driving, we were both busy, and we were both trying to get somewhere, but we're just in the middle of a conversation and we were talking. It's like, hey, we want to put this together here pretty soon. And I'm glad we did. I've learned a lot about myself just in the research of kind of like what you're doing. And so I can do my due diligence. How can we get more information? I'm going to have all the links and stuff down below, but what's the best way for someone to sort of get involved a little bit and kind of figure themselves, whether they're a coach or a business owner or just, whatever? What's the easiest way?
Well, if they want to just do it on their own, they can certainly do that. But and they would go out and they would source a code from Gallup, from StrengthsFinders, to get their top 5 strengths sorted out in terms of learning what that is, and they'd be given a couple of digital reports, or they could come through me and take it to the next step and learn about what options that they have in order to progress with coaching and more support in terms of to get them there probably faster and deeper. Because the thing about the strengths also is that if you think about the strengths like batteries, they wear down, but there are also things that you need to do to make them stronger. And so think about myself as someone that also is kind of like a personal trainer that can allow you to help figure out how to strengthen your strengths. But the best way for people to get in touch with me is really through my email, which is Kathy, Kathy Murphy, Murphy at me.com, Kathy Murphy at me.com. And then I can, arrange to have a meeting with them and talk about like, what are they trying to do? Because sometimes it's just a quick conversation that I need to have with somebody to help them sort out what they need to do next. And it may be completely independent of doing anything with me, but if I can help somebody, I'm happy to do that. Another thing, I'll just reach back here. Let's see.
And I will make sure I have everything linked down in the description below. So everybody, if you didn't write it down, it's right there.
I should have had these closer by. These are 2 of my 3 books. My first book is called Wisdom Whisperer, and hence the name on the hat here. And each of the books is 100 pages in length. They contain 50 stories that are 2 pages in length. I like to refer to them as buffet reading because you can choose to read a story at any point in the book. You don't need to read it sequentially. You just pick out the topic that you might enjoy reading about. An example of a topic could be along the lines of ways to stop saying I'm sorry, ways to say no, ways to deal with high maintenance colleagues or maybe teammates. These are just some examples. Reasons manners will get you ahead in business. I mean, lots of different topics that cover a very wide span of content. There's something for everybody.
I will make sure I have those linked down below as well. So I'm going to put as much information I can where people can click to it on their own pace when they see this or they hear this episode. They'll have it, and at least they can bookmark it. And when they're ready to reach out, if they want to learn more information, trust me, send her an email. She will definitely get back to you. Take it from my experience. We spoke not too long ago. I guess it's been a little bit. I think time got away from us too. But I appreciate you coming on. There's so much more I want to get into. So in the future, I'd love to have you back on maybe later on in the season here and kind of figure out what things are, how things have progressed for you. Tell us some more stories, some more of your experience. And I wish you all the best. And again, I thank you so much for joining me.